Welcome to the Heart-Led Business Show, where compassion meets commerce and leaders lead with love. Join your host, Tom Jacobs, as he delves into the insightful conversations with visionary business leaders who defy the status quo, putting humanity first and profit second. From heartfelt strategies to inspiring stories, this podcast is your compass in the world of conscious capitalism. So buckle up and let your heart guide your business journey.
Brace yourself for a delightful dive down the rabbit hole with our heart-led honcho, Liz Shuler. Liz turns trauma into triumph, making merry with the mind-body miracles on her quest to convert professionals from simply surviving to supremely thriving. So buckle up for a brain-tickling ride into the realm of psychedelic integration and yoga therapy on the Heart-Led Business Show, where shadow meets light and business meets the beat of the heart. Liz, welcome to the show.
Hi, that's really good to be here. That was a wonderful introduction.
You know, I'd love to take credit for writing that, but with the advent of AI, it does it for me. So with a good creative prompt, of course. So, Liz, I always like to ask, first off, what's your definition of a heart-led?
So the simple answer for me would be that a heart-led business, is aligned with your core values. But I want to go a little bit deeper because we know now with science and ancient wisdom that have kind of come together that we have brains in our hearts and our guts. So there are neurons around in both our heart and kind of in our intestines and our stomachs. And those little brains communicate with this brain more than this brain communicates with those brains.
Oh,
Yeah,
interesting.
it's really cool. And so knowing this, it's a heart-led business is a business that is led from that knowing, that felt sense, that gut feeling, that following your heart that comes from literally those little brains communicating with our thinking brain and our cognitive functions. So it's a really literally an alignment between our heart, our gut, and what we call our brain.
Oh, that's a new take on the definition of heart-led business, and I really appreciate. I mean, I didn't realize that we had that little brain in our heart, in our gut. I had a functional medicine doc on here, and he was explaining, you have that gut feeling, but if your
Yeah.
gut isn't in, the proper, chemistry and you have gut issues, then not always is your gut instinct like really there.
Yeah, the gut microbiome has a huge impact on all of that. With our heart brain,
Yeah.
a lot of that, when we talk about following our heart and the feelings of love and connection that we have for each other, that comes from that little brain that's floating around the heart.
Oh, that's very cool. So what inspired you then to start a heart-led?
Oh, I've worked in the mental health field for like 14 years, more now, actually, probably. And it was something that I went into because I wanted to help people, because I face my own challenges and I wanted to help people find their way in a similar way that I found my way. And what I realized, I've worked in residential treatment for adolescents, I've worked in schools, I've worked in private practices, and all of them have this overarching system that is the medical model, that is the mental health system, that at some point makes you let go of a lot of that heart and gut and flow into their system.
Mm.
You have to diagnose. You have to do treatment plans. You have to figure out what's wrong with people. And that never felt good to me.
Yeah.
And so I kept jumping. Like, okay, residential treatment. They tried to, pull me away from that heart-led piece. So let's move into private practice. Well, I still have to work with insurance companies, and that doesn't feel right either. So let's try schools. But then there's that overarching idea of figure out what's wrong, fix the kids, right?
Mm,
Do something to make them better. When I know in my heart that there's nothing wrong with them, it's just that we need to find a different way to deal with our environment, to deal with the things that are going on with us. And so the further I went into this system, the more I was losing that knowing and that feeling of being heart led and understanding who I was and where I was, and the less good I was doing for the people I was working with.
mm,
I decided when my partner wanted to go back to school that I was going to try something different. And that meant letting go a lot of the mental health system.
mm.
That's kind of where I'm in the middle of right now.
So tell me a little bit about your current business then, and so if you're not taking insurance, then obviously it's cash pay. So how do you navigate with that?
Right. So, what I'm doing right now is starting to move away from therapy altogether.
Mm,
So, I am licensed currently, and eventually I will let that go. But I'm moving more into the holistic healing, into the coaching, things that don't need a diagnosis. I don't have to think about what the insurance companies are going to say. I don't have to worry about diagnosis or treatment plan. I can be with the person in front of me.
yeah.
And I don't have to worry about evidence based treatment,
Mm,
which for most insurance companies is mostly like CBT and very strict manualized things. And you can get away with some of the other stuff, but then you have to document it in a very specific way. And it just gets so messy. So, what I'm doing now is a coaching business, is technically what my business plan says,
okay.
but it's more a holistic healing practice where I use psychedelics, yoga, things like Reiki and shadow work to help people really get into that deep healing that talk therapy or any of these manualized treatments just don't get to.
Mm. Yeah, that's really interesting. And a lot of the holistic health practitioner, I talk to on a regular basis really struggle with that insurance model, especially in the States.
Mhm.
And it doesn't seem right that an insurance company that has absolutely nothing to do with medicine is dictating how a doctor or how a therapist should practice.
Yep.
So I commend you for getting outside that and finding a way. And, a lot of them are going to that health coach type of, and they're not diagnosing, they're not prescribing. It's doing people a lot better because of it.
The medical model is very focused on sick care,
Hmm.
right?
Yep.
And it's again about what's wrong with you, not about what you have inside, the healing potential that you have, and who you can be.
Yeah.
It's about managing symptoms rather than becoming who you are supposed to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's like a lot of high performers want to get that edge. And a lot of, I just think about this TV show, Billionaires. I don't know if you ever saw that, but they have a psychiatrist on staff
Hmm.
for these traders and
Yep.
in a hedge fund. And her whole goal was to get them to perform higher. There's nothing wrong with these people. I mean, some of them, there were some things wrong in the characters, but in a business setting, if I want to go 2% higher, 3%, get a productive edge, what's the diagnosis?
Right.
There is no, right? It's like Tom wants more. and, and I don't think an
Yep.
insurance company would pay for 20 sessions with a therapist to get me 2% better or what have you.
I mean, to get around that, I think some people have used things like adjustment disorder
Mm,
or some of the less problematic labels to help get people the healing that they need without, giving them a label that could follow them for the rest of their lives.
Yeah.
But even when you're having those profound symptoms of being depressed or having anxiety, in my view, after everything I've seen in the mental health industry, it's just not real. It's
Mm.
just being a human.
Yeah.
It's dealing with what's happening in our lives and maybe not knowing how to deal with what's happening in our lives. And the DSM diagnosis,
Hmm.
calling it a disease, I think has been helpful in one way for stigma, but in other ways, it's created this false dichotomy of people who are mentally ill and people who aren't.
Right.
And that's just not true. Even the people who created the DSM have said, it's just made up.
Huh. Oh my gosh. And it's in
Yeah.
what, its fourth iteration? Is it DSM-4 now, or are we
Fifth.
we're at DSM-5?
I think actually fifth revised.
Oh wow. Go figure. Well, we keep changing our mind. That's mental health, right? So let's dig in then to the business side. So
Mhm.
going outside of insurance for a lot of practitioners is very scary because now people are conditioned that, okay, I have a condition, so insurance should pay for it. So how do you design a business that still you're leading with your heart, but you're able to, live indoors and eat?
Yeah, and that's always the balance, right? And it's really difficult, even for therapists who take insurance, to help people understand why they charge what they charge. And so moving out of that gives a little bit more freedom because you have to understand in the therapy world, there are certain parameters that you have to fit into. There's a box,
Hmm.
and that is a legally defined box. So stepping out of that means you can lose your license, means you can be criminally prosecuted
Oh, wow.
in some states. Um, but there's also a huge lack of accountability because a lot of therapists do those things, get a slap on the wrist, and then just go to a different state
Huh.
and have a different license. So it's like this box that if you are an ethical practitioner, you feel scared to come out of. But a lot of the unethical practitioners do whatever they want
Oh, wow.
and don't have a lot of consequences. So talking about fees and talking about money is one of those things that's in the box
Hmm.
and that people are told, you are there to serve. And it's almost becomes a martyr
Hmm.
complex. You're supposed to help these people even if you're not doing okay.
Wow.
And I don't ascribe to that because I can't help you if I'm a mess.
Right.
Being more transparent about my fees and what I'm charging and why I'm charging is part of the way that I am combating that. So I charge right now €200 per hour, and I have packages that have discounts. So the more sessions you buy with me, the less it is per hour,
Hmm. Okay.
basically. So I try to keep it a little bit affordable that way. But you have to also remember that I'm only being paid for the time that we are face to face.
Right.
But that's not all the work that I do.
Exactly.
I am preparing for our sessions. I am taking a lot of continuing education. I am looking for resources. I am making sure that if something that you said to me I don't know anything about, that I'm going to go research that. So there's at least an hour outside of the face to face hour that I'm doing work for you. And then I have all the other business stuff I have to run
Right.
that I don't get paid for any of it.
Right.
I'm only getting paid for that 1 hour face to face. So €200 an hour seems like a lot. But when you think about, the 2 or 3 hours of work that has to go out behind the scenes,
Yeah.
it's maybe 50. And then there's all the taxes and all the other things that you pay.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's
So
interesting.
just trying to be, transparent.
Yeah. Absolutely. When I doing fitness, that was kind of the model as buy 10
Mhm,
sessions and I'll give you the 11th for free, and
mhm,
or buy 50 sessions and the rate goes lower. Eventually, what I was finding is that time for money was just not working, and it wasn't
mhm,
serving the clients, and wasn't serving me or the trainers as well. So eventually, we went to a membership model that
mhm.
allowed clients to come in up to 3 or 4 times, or sometimes unlimited times for their workout. And they were just charged a monthly fee or a yearly fee. And they knew exactly what that was. They could budget it and all that. And a lot of practitioners that I've been talking to go to that, like that package. It's going to be $5,000 for the year, period, end of story. No nickel and dime, no like counting sessions. It's you're going to get what you need to get better.
Mhm.
And I think, I mean, that's a shift, obviously, from, a lot of practitioners going fee for service, per hour. But what do you think about that? Do you think it's a way that you could change or not?
Yeah, I think that that's something that down the line, as I'm moving toward trying to create more opportunities for affordable services, that I am thinking about
Yeah.
right now, because my business is probably less than a year old at this point. I'm just ground floor and trying to build some things. I do also think that things like courses,
Mm.
I know that they have a bad rap because people are scammy
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
whatever. But having courses that are like yoga therapy courses or courses that help people integrate their psychedelic experiences with a lot of the same tools that we can use face to face, it's not as powerful because you're not having that relational connection
Right.
that I really feel is healing. But it allows me to put a whole bunch of work up front and then you pay, if 300 euro for a course that you have for the rest of your life. And I get to help people that couldn't afford working with me individually.
Yeah.
So I'm doing that now.
That's
And
great.
eventually, I think once I have a client base built up, I'll probably move to more of like a membership model or something that's, more affordable and feels, I don't know, more expansive. Like,
Yeah, that's good, and I've certainly done the course creation as well, because what I was finding is I was saying the same thing to every client, and at that point, you know what? Let me just record this, and then
mhm,
you know you're going to have these issues coming up. Go to lesson 1, 5, and 8, deal with them. And then during our session, and maybe now it's every other week. Now we can have a chat about what you learned from the course, and I see a lot of people shifting to that, and does people a lot of good as well. Hybrid, it's one, not as expensive, or I should say more affordable for some people. And then but it gives you the same of help and support that you need.
right. Yeah. And again, it gives you that foundation, like you're talking about, the things that you're going to tell everybody.
Hmm.
You might as well give to people so that they can start there. And then when you come to work with me, we do some of that deeper or higher level work.
Yeah. Cool. So, obviously, let's talk a little bit about psychedelics, because I think that's really intriguing. It's obviously coming up more and more in the
Mhm.
States, and I know in Europe. And just why don't you tell our listeners where you are right now? Because I think it's
I am
fascinating.
currently in Kortrijk, Belgium.
Belgium. Ah, love Belgium, and I love Belgian beer.
Yes,
It's
it's
like
the best
so
beer in the world.
so many different varieties as well. That's very cool. And are you practicing with people in the States as well, or just simply in?
Yes. I have a small in-person practice here where I actually have a really nice nature path right close to my house.
Oh, nice.
And we do walk and talk sessions,
Okay.
which is really nice because being out in nature is one of those healing things, especially for integrating psychedelics,
Hmm.
where you're feeling that big expansive connection to everything, it really helps bring everything back together. But then I also do a lot of online sessions for anybody around the world.
All right, cool. So, like, what a normal, or I shouldn't say normal, typical trip might look like. I had to say that.
Oh, that's really difficult.
Now,
Um,
what the therapy would be like psychedelic and then post psychedelic.
yeah. So again, I think it's going to differ just a little bit based on substance,
Mm.
and it's going to differ a little bit based on what sort of. You're going to have a trip sitter. Are you going to do a ceremony?
Ooh.
Are you going to, have a group retreat where you're taking the medicine? So most of the time, I do prep sessions, and that means that I am working with you to figure out what substance is going to work for you,
Mm.
how you're going to do that safely.
Yeah.
So we're going to come up with a plan of how you're going to do that dosing session. Are you
Mm.
going to take it with, your wife or partner sitting next to you? Or are you going to be in a retreat setting? And we'll come up with a plan for whatever it is that you're going to be doing.
Do
And
people
we're
do
going
this by themselves ever, or do you recommend not doing it by yourself?
when you say by yourself, yes, but I don't recommend that.
Yeah.
I don't think anybody in the space recommends taking a substance and being completely alone.
Yeah.
I don't think you need always like a trained guide.
Mm.
You can have somebody who is there, who you have a plan with, and something happens, can get you to safety or do whatever needs to happen.
Oh, that's cool.
Um,
I was a trip
yeah,
sitter
but
in college once, and I didn't know that's what it was called, but my two roommates wanted to drop acid, and I was like, I'll watch you guys, and it was wild.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So just having someone there who's sober to keep you from
Doing stupid
pulling out the
things.
knives or yeah, right. Psychedelics are really, really safe.
Hmm.
And if you've done the prep work and you've, made sure that you're physically safe to take the substance that you're working with.
Cool. That's good.
Yeah.
What are the different substances that people might take?
Oh, there are so many. So I think the most common would be psilocybin,
Okay. Magic
LSD,
mushrooms, right?
yep,
Okay.
or magic truffles.
Oh,
In the Netherlands, it's
fancy.
just the little underground bits of the mushroom,
Oh, okay.
but it's technically a different plant
Oh, interesting.
legally,
Legally,
not
it's a different.
what. So psilocybin, LSD,
Huh.
DMT.
Oh, what's DMT?
I
I'm not-
can't ever remember the chemical name, but it's basically the active ingredient in ayahuasca.
Oh, okay. All right. Oh,
Mhm.
cool.
We also have DMT endogenous in our bodies and brains.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Interesting.
Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Where was I?
DMT.
DMT, mescaline,
Hmm.
just
Yeah.
did ayahuasca, and ketamine.
Oh,
Kind of the five common ones.
hmm. Nice. And then, so you get them all prepped up so they know like what they should take. They get their body ready. They have somebody kind of watching over them as well. And so then they do the medication. And then what? And everybody's going to be a little bit different, right? That's
Mhm.
kind of the whole idea. What's then the integration app? So I think that's really the fascinating thing for me.
The integration afterwards is explaining and processing your experiences
Hmm.
because some people are going to have alien experiences,
Hmm.
experiences with angels, experiences of the spirit of the plant. Some people are just going to feel like they died,
Oh,
right? A complete ego death. So there can be some really challenging experiences, and you want to be able to process those and just share them,
hmm.
first of all.
Yeah.
And to somebody who's not going to be like, you're
Oh,
crazy.
right. A professional.
Yeah. Or at least somebody knows that that's normal for what you've went through.
Yeah.
And then you're going to try and make meaning out of that.
Hmm.
So what does that mean to you? If you were to take a message from that, what would that be? And then whatever that message is, that meaning, we're going to create practices and habits and make changes in your life to really support that meaning and get you to the place that the medicine wanted you to go.
Interesting.
Mhm.
Is it that the medicine is just opening up pathways in our brain that just have either been dormant or are subconscious and just bringing that up to the surface, things that we've maybe repressed and just not
Yeah,
aware of?
so it's really interesting because there are some like physical things we can see. So for a lot of the like psilocybin, LSD, the tryptamines, they are really creating new neurons in our brain
Mm,
and opening up the the plasticity in our brain so that it's really easy to change those pathways.
mm,
So if you've ever tried to do something different, right? You have a habit, you try and break it, it's difficult.
right.
When you take psychedelics, it makes that 100 times easier
Huh.
because your brain is so willing to create those new pathways, change those pathways. But that's not the only thing that happens.
Mm,
We have those mystical experiences that, for most people, are the real catalyst for whatever changes they make afterwards.
okay.
And so that's where the meaning making really comes in. Because those mystical experiences, yes, your brain is open to them. It's easier to make those changes, but you wouldn't be making those changes without some sort of other message or meaning or something that happened during that experience.
Okay. And is that why a lot of recovery, like drug and alcohol centers, are using ketamine or psychedelics now to break that habit? Then,
Yes.
yeah.
Yeah, because most psychedelics are non addictive.
Hmm.
They don't create physical tolerance, they don't create psychological tolerance. So they're safer for people with addictions to use, but they also, again, create that opening in the neural pathways. So it's easier to let go of that need for that reward, that dopamine.
Yeah. I mean, that's like that seems like the best benefit for especially the opioid epidemic that's going on right now, and meth
Mhm.
and really the drugs that are killing,
Right.
getting them the help and using things that just open up that brain. Pretty cool.
We should be using the tools that nature is giving us.
Yeah.
These medicines have been used for, I ju- we can't even know
Thousands
how
of
long they've
yeah.
been used,
Yeah.
right? For healing and for things like addictions.
Yeah. Oh, that's incredible. Well, Liz, thank you so much for sharing. Yeah, that's incredible. And thanks for sharing your story about being a heart-led and what that's like for you personally. What one piece of advice might you give to somebody just starting out? And I know you've kind of transitioned your practice in the last year, so this is probably fresh on your mind. But what type of advice, just one piece that you might give to somebody that is struggling with making that transition?
Yeah, letting go of whatever it was that you were doing before can be really difficult. And leaping into something that feels really scary, feels like there's not a lot of stability,
Yeah.
right? So having a plan beforehand
Mm,
to give yourself that foundation so that you're not scared
yep.
and you can build from there. So, for example, I have quite a bit of savings that I can live off of. And if I don't make any money for a year or two, I'm fine. So there's no fear there for me,
Nice.
right? So making sure that you have that plan first is a really good foundation so that you can be led from that knowing and that intuition rather than fear.
Yeah, because I'm sure if you're coming from a place of fear, that's a place of scarcity. That's going to not open up that heart, and you're not going to lead with the heart. So that's really great advice. Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And now, if people are interested in working with different
Mhm.
ways, how can they get a hold of you?
So I'm really active on LinkedIn. I work with a lot of professionals.
Awesome.
So you can find me at Inner Evolution Coaching.
Okay.
I'm also on Instagram at the same handle. And you can find my website, innerevolutioncoach.com.
Well, we'll link all that up into the show notes. So listeners, make sure you're checking that out. And I know our guests always like it when people reach out to them and see how they're
Yeah.
doing and how this episode has definitely affected them. So Liz, again,
Sure.
thank you so much for coming on to the show. I really appreciate you and all that you're.
Thank you. It was so good. Thank you for letting me geek out about psychedelics.
Yeah, absolutely. I love geeking out on all sorts of things. So awesome. And also a message to our listeners. Thank you for listening and watching the show today. We really do appreciate it. Make sure you are checking out what Liz is doing and provide and what we provided in the show notes. And also if you could do what other considerate listeners are doing, and that is giving the show a rating and a review, hopefully 5 stars. And because that really spread the word and get more people the help that they need and the stories on being a heart-led business. So until next time,
You've been listening to the Heart-Led Business Show, hosted by Tom Jacobs. Join us next time for another inspiring journey into the heart of business.